Joseph, patience. What is patience? I know patience is part of the fruit of the Spirit, and we can have a nice laugh because I also know it's in the Zimbabwean culture, especially. There's a lot of people that's called patience because there was a lady Patience that worked for us once. So it's interesting, but I know it's not just the name of a person. What is patience? What is the patience part of a Christian? Not just the worldly description, but more the fruit of the Spirit description. What would you say?
All right. So let me read to you as Galatians 5:22. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. And then on the New King James, like a long suffering. Okay. In another translation, I got patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Okay. So patience. I was actually engaging the Lord, and I asked him about patience, because I had a reason to be impatient. Okay. I really needed something, and I just felt that the Lord said I must be patient. So then I said to God, okay, explain to me how patience work. Okay. So now long suffering, of course, I've heard a few sermons about long suffering, and usually they'll go with you must suffer a long time, So that's typically where they
That's
go
how it
with it,
feels, yes.
And then I'll usually go to James chapter 1, and then it says, count it all joy when you go through all these trials and tribulations and all of that, because that's going to create in you,
Steadfastness.
you're going to create a godly character out of your sufferings that you're going through. And so then that's not long suffering. Okay. But if you think about patience, what the Lord showed to me, in heaven, time looks different than time looks on earth.
Okay.
So on earth, we measure time with days, months, years, hours, minutes, and seconds. But in heaven, it's according to events, things that has to happen. This happens, then the next thing happens, then the next thing. So God's got a timeline. Okay. So in other words, because there's no time and space in heaven, that dimensions is part of our earthly system.
So the natural.
Okay. There's more dimensions in heaven, not less. Okay. So, but in heaven, time, can I almost say, is a little bit more flexible, just because one event has to happen, then the next event, and then the next event. I mean, God would have been happy if the Israelites could have went straight into the promised land, and the walls of Jericho would have fallen, and they would have, taken all of those areas captured, and God could have given all the tribes their land. But now that generation was not willing to do it, so it had to wait for the next generation, and they kind of just continued. So it's almost as if that event was the next event on the list. And if you guys are not happy to do that event, then you guys must die. Then your children can do that event, because that's the event, So there's not other choices. It's not like recalculate, let's do something different. It's like you hear some guys who say, "No, okay, I'm in sales now. I'm a real estate agent." Next year you meet the guy, no, I got a barber shop. I'm doing hair. The next year you talk to the guy, no.
Coffee shop.
Yeah, I got a coffee shop. No, I'm working now at the municipality. That was not good. So it's like falling all over the place. That's not how God works. God is not going to try this and then try that. When Joseph was sold into slavery, that was an event that had to happen. When Joseph went to work for Potiphar, that was an event that had to happen. It was not outside of God's plan, it was inside God's plan. When he had to go to jail, it was an event, it had to happen. Because at the farm, he had to learn about agriculture. Because they were going into a famine, they needed someone that understands agriculture. He had to go into prison so he can understand maturity. He had to understand how the government system works. He had to understand how the law of Egypt functions. He had to connect with the leaders. So he had the baker and the cupbearer. The cupbearer with him. He had to understand how to interpret dreams. He already started having dreams when he was young, but he couldn't interpret it. But then with a cupbearer and the baker, he could interpret the dreams. So that when he reached Pharaoh, he understood agriculture, he understood the legal system, he could interpret dreams. Alright, so he was mature enough to be able to take that position that God has for him. So it was events that's on the list. Doesn't maybe sound like, God, could you not have trained him those things in an easier way? But that was the plan that God has, and he had to stay on that. Okay. Now patience is to say, Lord, I'm going to stay on the timeline that you have for me. That's what God said to me. He says,
Sure.
Joseph, I have a
Okay.
timeline for you, and as long as you are willing to stay on my timeline, meaning if God says stay, you stay. If he says go, go. If he says, okay, I want you to do this, do this. Now I want you to move on to the next thing, do that. As long as you're willing to every time say yes when God say go do that, then that's patience. Okay. So of course you can go on a detour. You can, okay, the Holy Spirit says go this way, you decide let's go that way. That's what Jonah. God says go to Nineveh. He decides, okay, it's going to opposite direction. It goes to Joppa, and then the boat has a storm. They throw him into the ocean. He gets into the whale, 3 days in the whale. The whale spits him out, and then God asked him the same question just before he went on the boat the first time. Will you please go to Nineveh? And then he says, I'll go to Nineveh. Okay, so he went. So in other words, that was the next event on his life. Okay. So if you don't want to do that, then God is very happy to be patient with you while you go on your detour, and he's willing to heal you and restore you so you can get back. But I mean, the next event is the next event. Okay, that's where he wants you to go. Now, patience is like Samuel. So in the Bible, you read about Samuel. He was like 9 years old or so. He heard the voice of God. The Lord gave him a very, very hard word, the very first prophetic word at 9 years old about how God is going to kill Eli and all his kids for all their sins and the corruption. I mean, it's a very hard word that God gives to Samuel. And then Eli asked Samuel, what did God say? And then he didn't want to answer. And he said, no, tell me everything God says. Don't hold anything back. He told him, and then he says, okay, that is the word of the Lord, and let it be as God has said. That's what Eli said, although the word was very negative for him. Okay, but then from that point, Samuel listened to what God said. He was obedient every time,